Hi, Margaret here, Margaret Tosi. Just thought I'd give you a little information. And headlining my post, it says, what do these following conditions have in common? And the following conditions are diseases of the brain, such as Alzheimer's, dementia, cognitive decline, loss of memory associated with aging, MS, neurological conditions, mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, psychosis, bipolar, cardiovascular disease, learning and developmental disorders, autoimmune, to include obviously hypothyroidism, cancer, and male and female infertility. What do those things have in common? They can mimic a B12 deficiency. B12. Okay, so what we have in this country and lots of other places, obviously, is an invisible epidemic of B12 deficiency. And there's mainly two reasons for that. Number one, most physicians get very little training on nutrition. They receive maybe a half an hour, so they just aren't informed, and so they're a little ignorant. And the other reason is, and I'll get to it later, but let's talk a little bit about this invisible epidemic. The Framingham study, which is a study done roughly 60 years ago, found that that roughly 40% of the people between the ages of 23 and 83 are deficient, and that it can affect up to 40% of people age 60 and older. It occurs as alarmingly in the young as in the old, and many of the attributes that we classify as aging, like cognitive decline, memory loss, and loss of mobility, really may be in part at a B12 deficiency. Hi, Karen. So let's see. Why is B12 underdiagnosed? I mentioned that physicians are just a little ignorant. They just don't know. Your healthcare provider just may not know. And one of the second reasons is the normal reference range for B12 deficiency. The normal reference range, in other words, your doctor's going to get your lab slip and he's going to say, you are not B12 deficient, because in the U.S., your B12 level, if you get a serum B12, which is one of the most common tests, will say that you are okay if your level is anywhere from 200 on up. But the literature basically says that if you have anything from 200 to 300 picograms per milliliter, just remember the numbers, that's indicative of a B12 deficiency. And again, if your doctor doesn't know and he does the B12 deficiency, you know how you get those lab slips and they'll say normal. That's what your lab slip's going to say. You're normal. So there's experts that say if your serum B12 is 450 or below and you have symptoms, you should get further testing. Okay, what are those tests? There's an MMA, just remember that, MMA, homocysteine, or what they call a holo-T, and they stand for different things. Just remember those. Okay. What is B12 and what's it important and what was it needed for? B12 is a water-soluble vitamin, so you can't take too much of it. It's not going to get stored in your body. It's primarily involved in red blood cell production and myelin sheath production. Those are the involved with your nerves. So if you think systemically, anything that affects your red blood cell production can affect the way you feel, for sure. Like you're going to feel anemic or short of breath or tired. Those are other kind of symptoms. Hi, Ashley. So you may not even know it. Okay, so why is this a deficiency so common? Hi, Carrie. The deficiency is so common. Hi, I'm Margaret again. Because to make a very long story short, B12 is a vitamin that is very complicated in its absorption. And if you have anything going on in your GI tract, any dysbiosis, anything like that, you'll have trouble. So I'm going to go over some of the conditions you may have, or that people often have, that disrupt the absorption of this vitamin. So dysbiosis, which means you just have an imbalance of proper bacteria in your GI tract. Gastritis, pernicious anemia, which is definitely associated with B12 deficiency. In fact, that's one of the reasons they discovered B12 was pernicious anemia. Pernicious just means deadly. You would die without that B12. Leaky gut. I don't know, everybody's heard of leaky gut, but if you have a leaky gut, you might have trouble absorbing B12. If you've had a procedure where you've had nitrous oxide, so you've been to the dentist, or you just had something really simple, nitrous oxide can decrease your absorption. If you have GERD, which is just gastroesophageal reflux disease, better known as heartburn, certain medications can affect your absorption of B12, and I'll go into those in a minute. Antibiotics definitely can affect it. Chemotherapy, and some say gluten, MSG can affect your absorption of B12. And anybody's had that weight loss surgery, and I always forget, VSG and the gastric bypass, will definitely have troubles in their life with B12. Okay, and those for the greatest risk of B12 deficiency will be vegans and vegetarians. And I forgot to mention this, the foods that B12 is found in are basically meats. So any meat, fish, poultry, pork, organ meats, even shellfish. So vegans and vegetarians are at an increased risk. Those over the age of 60, remember I mentioned that about 40% of the people walking around at over 60 may be B12 deficient. Those people on certain medications, these medications include any antacids, because again, it's complicated. And so if you're hey Jennifer, hey, if your GI tract is affected, if you're on TUMS, proton pump inhibitors like the purple pill Nexium, things like that. If you are on the diabetes medication metformin, and oh my gosh, there's so many people out on, obviously with diabetes and on that medication, those medicines can just disrupt your B12 absorption. Okay, another group of people that are at high risk for B12 deficiency are people with digestive issues such as Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, and celiac disease. And the last category of people at high risk are women and men with infertility issues. So how do you treat this darn thing? Well, I do want to say it's a kind of a tragedy, and especially in a country like ours, because vitamins are not expensive. So that's really sad. And the second thing is it's very expensive, unfortunately, to treat the B12 deficiency symptoms. It can be. And remember, B12 is involved in your nerves, and you know that if nerve damage is left to go too long, it does become permanent. And so that's a sad thing. That's a very sad thing. Okay, so those with pernicious anemia, that was that deadly anemia I mentioned before, and inflammatory gut issues like Crohn's and things like that, maybe irritable bowel, those people will probably have to get B12 injections for life, because they're going to have issues with the absorption of B12 their entire life. B12 injections aren't expensive. Again, it's a vitamin. Okay. And the other hint I want to tell you is, if you want to get tested, or the next time you go see your doctor and you're like, I'm going to get my B12 checked, do not start taking B12 before you get your B12 check, because it'll disrupt the result of the test. It's gonna show that you're normal when you're not. So wait to supplement until you've been tested. And if you get tested and it is low, if you're below 450, then you and your healthcare provider need to determine what the cause might be. Do you have any of those conditions I talked about? Do you have heartburn? Do you have irritable bowel? Do you think you might have a leaky gut or dysbiosis and need to clean up your diet? So those are things you'd want to work on and see if you can fix it, and then start supplementing. Again, some people will have to be on injections because they just have permanent problems, especially those people on those, after the weight loss surgery. And I don't know how well they're ever told about that by their weight loss surgeon. Anyway, so I just need to look. So what type of B12 do you want to take? The most common one is cyanocobalamin. You'll see that. That is the cheapest B12. It's not the best, and it's not the most well absorbed. And just so you know, the cyano stands for cyanide, so don't take cyanocobalamin. The best form is methylcobalamin, and you can get it in chewables. I've never seen the nasal, but they do talk about nasal spray in the literature. Okay, and then the injections. So, if you have any of those symptoms, like I talked about, depression, anxiety, the mental health issues, psychosis, bipolar, all the mental issues, dementia, cognitive decline, memory loss, I have that. What else? Developmental or learning delays in children, autism. Think about just anemia in general. Like, are you tired? Do you have less energy? Do you have shortness of breath? Those types of things. Then you want to get tested. Don't start taking your supplement yet. Get tested. Determine if you have an absorption issue or not, because that will determine whether you might need a B12 injection. And another thing I want to say, a lot of doctors just don't take this seriously. But I think if they really thought about it and realized that, okay, you're B12 deficient and it's causing cognitive decline, that can end up being permanent. That's expensive. So, and that's a tragedy too. Okay, so do this. Get tested. Find out why you might have these problems. Get yourself healthy. Take your supplement. Hi, Terry. Take your supplement and do it for yourself, your family, and for the world. A couple of resources I would recommend. Hi, Terry. I would recommend is b12awareness.org. That's like super complete. You're going to find more than you ever wanted to know. I did watch a video, and I thought this guy was pretty thorough on B12. It was called Global Healing Center, GH. So if you go to YouTube and you type GHC B12, his video will pop up. It's long. It's like 50 minutes, but it's very complete. And he actually goes into a lot more things. So I hope you got a little something out of this today. Someday I might get good enough to schedule these in advance to let people know. And I would love to stay connected with any of you guys. So feel free to, pop me some questions. If I've left something out, or you have a suggestion for something else I can talk about. I am a registered dietitian. I try, but So if you have any other topics you'd like to discuss, feel free to reach out to me, message me. I'd love to get to know you better. I know some of you I know really well, and some people I just haven't connected with entirely in a while. And I'd like to get back to you personally. So I gotta itch my nose. It's really itchy. Anyway, I hope you had a great 4th of July. I did. Downtown Flagstaff's beautiful, and it was just fun. It was a little hot, but it was a lot of fun. And Terry says I should put videos on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel. I should do that. I don't know. I think you can save these live videos to your phone, your live Facebook videos to your phone, so that you can actually then re-up them. You can reload them, whatever it is, to your YouTube channel. So I hope I get to do this with this one and I don't lose it. But hi, Karen. Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to let you go. Connect with me. Bye.